Let's put some of these queries to a man who has the answers. Himanshu Kapania is Managing Director with Idea Cellular Limited. Mr. Kapania, good morning. Great to have you with us here. Thanks very much. Prashant this side. First up, let me wish you a very happy and prosperous 2015, sir, from everyone here at the NDTV family. What do you make of the amount of detailed information that is available as a participant in the auctions, upcoming spectrum auctions?
Thank you so much, Prashant. And let me also wish you as well as all your viewers Happy New Year 2015 and great investing. Specifically on the auction, all of us at the industry are eagerly waiting for the document which is known as NIA, which gives specific details on quantum spectrum, reserve price, and terms of the contract. So we will wait to see that document. We hear from media reports that it is expected in few weeks' time, and it would be best that we discuss that after NIA document has been released.
As of now, can you tell us what you know about the quantum of spectrum which is going to go under the hammer?
So there is a document that has been released by TRAI, and TRAI since October of 2014, when it conducted a consultation process for renewal of spectrum, primarily for 900 megahertz renewal, has been stating that government needs to increase the overall quantum. So at this point of time, based on information that is available in the media, as well as release which has been given out by TRAI, there is going to be an auction for 900 and 1800, most of it from in-use spectrum of licenses. There is going to be auction of 800, which is fresh supply which has been lying with government for quite some time, as well as there is going to be an auction of 2100. As per the last document which TR has released, that there could be a possibility of either 3 slots of spectrum being released or 4th slot, though the 4th slot may be in 17 out of 22 circles. They have also recommended strongly that the Estel spectrum, which is in 3 slots, currently not in use, should also be put to auction. So the overall number based on TRAI recent release exceeds 400 megahertz on the 2100 megahertz space. But we wait to see the final release from Department of Telecommunication.
Right. Now, would you say that the amount of spectrum which is put out for auctioning under the 2100 megahertz band is going to be pretty critical? Because if there is enough which is made available there, the pressure on the 900 megahertz would go down, where Idea is going to participate for most of its renewal.
So let me give you a very general answer. India specifically, as you are aware, is the second largest market for mobility in the world, behind China, ahead of United States and most developed countries. But surprisingly, India has the highest level of competition, with voice competition anywhere between 8 to 10 operators per circle, and data competition at this point of time 4 to 6 operators per circle. India still is a growing market. It constitutes to about 25 to 30% of subscriber adds in the world, and still a growing market for voice. And it is a tip of an iceberg as far as growth of data, with only about 100 million users, and the journey is just about begin. So India needs a very large quantum of spectrum, not only in the 2100 megahertz space, but in other spectrum blocks, including 800, 700, 2300 and 2500. So we are hopeful that government, for realizing its digital India vision, will release the quantum spectrum which is necessary to grow the overall volume of data in the country, and will also make sure that the prices are affordable, so that the Indian telecom operators and its investors can use once available spectrum, can spend more amount of money for capital, so that increase the overall infrastructure in the country.
Just a few days back, I had Mr. Sanjeev Aga on the show, Mr. Kapania, and he said the lower quantum of spectrum available, actually, if you provide more spectrum, the benefits of that is going to be somewhat equivalent to the benefits unleashed by the GST, for example. According to him, this was, this is the bigger kind of reform than a lot of the others, which are more talked and more focused upon. But I just want to press upon that 2100 megahertz point, Mr. Kapania. So how is this going to work? The defense, for example, has to make a swap, as we hear, which will free up some of this 15 or 20 megahertz of spectrum in whatever 3 or 4 blocks. Then how are private companies going to participate? I think what the TRA is saying, that you should go ahead with the auctions even if the swap isn't complete. The auction spectrum can be allocated later. Would operators be fine with this sort of an arrangement for the 2100 megahertz?
So first and foremost, let me echo exactly the point which Sanjeev has made on your show. There is, as far as spectrum is concerned, it is the key raw material for growth of telecom business. And as you are aware, around the globe, telecom constitutes to about 4% of GDP. It is the harbinger of growth in the new age economy. For GDP to continue to grow and double in every 5 to 7 year time period, you need ICT, which is information communication and technology, as the growth engine, and broadband is one of the key for ICT to operate. So definitely India, if it has to grow at a faster GDP rate, telecom has to contribute to much higher levels. Surprisingly, India today, telecom only contributes to 2.1% of the GDP, but the potential of it is it can take it up to 3 to 4% of GDP. It also helps related industries, both in the education side as well as in the health side, for it to grow. Now let me move on to the second part of your question, which is 2100. For information of all your viewers, 2100 megahertz has overall 60 megahertz of quantum of spectrum. Out of the 60 megahertz of quantum spectrum, broadly only about 25 megahertz of spectrum has been released up till now. So there is a potential of release of 35, and most of this 35 megahertz spectrum in the past was being used by defense and other users. So TRAI has been most vociferous, saying that worldwide 2100 megahertz is blocked for private use, and primarily initially for use of 3G, and maybe at a later point of time for use of 4G, and all the 60 megahertz needs to come to telecom. We hear that Department of Telecommunication as well as Defense have come with an arrangement so that the quantum which is being held by defense will be swapped with another spectrum, and we understand that there has been major progress on the same that has happened, which is also mentioned in the TRAI report. So we now actually wait for the final NIA, which is going to be the global auction for all the spectrum of 900, 800, 1800 and 2100. And as and when this auction happens, we will know exact quantums that is available. But industry is extremely hopeful. The recommendation of a TRAI of over 400 megahertz of spectrum in 2100 band, all of it will be released.
Okay, all of it would be released. But say for example, the amount of 2100 megahertz spectrum which is put for auction, the more that happens, would it reduce the competitive sort of pressures on in the way the 900 megahertz is going to be bid? What does it mean for Idea, for example? Are these two bands interchangeable? Can you work with 2100 megahertz instead of 900?
So So let me answer this question in two parts. I know Street has been focusing quite a bit on the short term and has been focusing on few of the listed companies. First and foremost, I can assure the Street that Idea Cellular is very much capable of taking care of itself. It is under the least stress in overall telecom sector, where most of the operators are highly leveraged. Idea Cellular is currently among the lowest leverage. As per quarter two results, it was at a level of 1.35 net debt to EBITDA level. But given that as a short term, the focus of auction is over a period of 20 years. So the decisions of operators are not going to be very short term led, but will be long term led. All this spectrum, whether it is in the 800, 900, 1800 and 2100 band, over a period of time may start with specific technologies. For example, 900 currently is being used in 2G and 2100 is being used by 3G. But as time passes by and as technology evolves, it is possible that some of this or most of this spectrum may all converge and move on to 4G spectrum. So the decisions of telecom operators are not going to be short-term led, but it is going to be long-term led. How they envisage how mobility will grow and what role individual telecom operator will play in this growing space of mobility in India.
Mr. Kapania, that's a masterful job of not answering my question. It's very insightful, but if you can tell us specifically, would 2100E do the job for 900 for Idea?
So I know that there is a short-term result, but there is Idea Cellular not only needs to renew its spectrum, which there is no doubt about that we have been the fastest growing telecom operator in the country. Based on past results, our minutes continue to grow anywhere between 12 to 15% year-on-year basis, and our data volume has been growing by between 110 to 125% year-on-year basis. So we have a need for more raw material, but there is none of this is substitutable. But there is a need for all the spectrum that the government is going to put up.
Okay. All right. All right. Fair enough.